All right, for my next show, I'm talking about the Colorado Plateau. What an awesome area of North America this is. I'm out here on the Colorado Plateau, one of the most fascinating geological areas of North America. So many incredible rock formations, canyons. It's the greatest concentration of national parks, national monuments in the U.S. I think besides D.C., if you're talking about density, but a huge concentration because there's so many really interesting areas. You might be thinking, oh, he went to Colorado. Actually, no. It is called the Colorado Plateau, mostly because of the Colorado River. So it does involve western Colorado, but mostly central southern Utah and northern Arizona and northwest New Mexico. But yeah, we're going to be able to look at the age of Earth over hundreds of millions of years in this area. Some really awesome sedimentation layers. This area was not at this latitude hundreds of millions of years ago. This area was actually pretty near the equator hundreds of millions of years ago. And that was one of the reasons why sometimes it had a tropical environment. Well, sometimes it was arid, totally desert-like. Sometimes there was an inland sea in here. Sometimes it was very marshy and just meandering rivers. Also, we got to think about sedimentation layers. That's one of the coolest things about this area is that you can really see the sedimentation layers. Sedimentation layer is sedimentary rock. Think about a body of water, a lake. You know, there's going to be some settling. Particulate matter, the things that have died and whatnot are going to start accumulating some lake bed of all that material, right? Once the water goes away, now you have this layer of accumulated stuff, and it can harden into rock of whatever was in that lake at that time. It's not always from bodies of water, but oftentimes it was. The awesomeness of the Colorado Plateau comes from deposition, uplift, and erosion. Deposition, we're talking about the sedimentary layers. That was established, and then there was uplift. So this whole area was brought up. How was it brought up? Well, turns out geologists aren't sure, but you might be the first person who actually figure out how the Colorado Plateau was lifted, so go have at it. And also the erosion. Water has flowed through here, Colorado River, flash floods, and also wind has really cut away and created some really awesome landscapes. So there you go, deposition, uplift, and erosion. All right, I made it to Horseshoe Bend, Arizona. This place is awesome. You've probably seen the picture of it, but you can't really appreciate the size of it until you get here. Of course, it was made from a gigantic horse, right, pushing down. I kid. But the Colorado River has worked its magic here. The power of erosion. This sandstone here, it's tough to erode, but the Colorado River has been able to erode through the path of least resistance. All right, time out. Let's talk more about the formation of Horseshoe Bend. It's not as simple as this river just was eroding rock that was a little more soft than the sandstone. It turns out this river was already meandering. It was meandering for a long period of time before the uplift. And so why the uplift happened, we're not sure. Remember, geologists aren't quite sure, but the whole landscape went up. The river's already meandering, and as it started to go up, now you've got river going downhill, and it starts eroding quickly. And it eroded down in the rock pretty quickly. And so what ended up happening was you had walls on both sides, and it was just eroding downward. And so it's called an incised meander. That's what happens when it erodes downwards very quickly. You get an incised meander like this. It's also called an entrenched meander. And that is because the sides near the river are symmetric. So the walls are, it's not asymmetrical, one higher than the other. That's because it eroded downward so quickly that it did not erode laterally very much. It was just eroding down, and so it kept symmetric walls on both sides. But yeah, why do they meander? I always wondered about that, and I looked it up. It's interesting. So you think about a river flowing with the same current all side to side, all the way down. At some point, the current flow is going to be disturbed. So at some point, you can have one side of the river moving faster than the other. Say One side is slowed down because of some extra vegetation added, some sediment, whatever. Could be slowing this side of the river down. Another example is, say, an animal digs a hole on the side of the river, and the river's actually going to kind of go in there quickly to replace the land that was taken away. Part of the river that's moving faster is eroding away at the riverbed and the side of the river more than the slower moving part of the river. This faster moving part of the river it starts pushing the side of the river outwards, and it comes around, and downstream it has momentum. It's flowing on that side of the river with a lot of momentum, and it actually glides into the side of the river downstream, the other side, and starts eroding away on that side of the river, the land. It starts pushing that out. Downstream, the other side is pushed out, and it keeps going. And so next time you're out looking at a river, you start seeing it curving, start thinking, oh, one side of the river was moving a little faster than the other. Something that's interesting with meandering rivers is that a big curve can get cut off. If you think about a curve getting longer and longer, going farther and farther out, and the part of the curve where it just starts to head out and when it comes back in, those parts can get closer and closer and eventually connect, and then the river is not going to go way out on that curve. Instead, it's going to take the shortcut, and that big curve gets cut off and creates a crescent-looking lake, and that's called an oxbow lake. And they think that's going to happen here, basically, that you can see it's curving more, and as it curves in, eventually it's going to create a natural bridge on the other side of this big structure here, similar to some of the bridges in Natural Bridges National Monument. How the heck does soft sand become hardened sandstone? I'm glad you asked. Well, think about a sediment layer on top of the sand. That creates a lot of weight and pressure on that sand, right? So that's a big part of it. Also, mineral-rich waters will get in the sand. Silica and calcium carbonate can precipitate out and form a cementing agent. So that makes it even harder. The combination of the weight and pressure from above and the cementing agent can turn something as soft as sand into super hard sandstone. Pretty cool. Here I am going up the little staircase to a view of the awesome grand staircase. All right, I'm at an awesome overlook at 6,700 feet above sea level, looking at the grand staircase in its full glory. Look at these layers, these beautiful cliffs. You can really see the staircase, the plateaus that drop off, and these awesome layers of sedimentation. Of course, the red cliffs are demonstrating what happens when you don't use sunblock. They have a really cool visual here of the grand staircase. It gives you an idea of what you're looking at. You're looking down deeper into Earth as you know, when it was older and older. And let's take a look at all these cool layers. So the top layer, as you can see, it's the Clarion or Wasatch Formation. They think it was laid down around 40-50 million years ago. What this is most famous for is in Bryce Canyon National Park, an awesome place that has these cool looking towers, these rock towers called hoodoos. So yeah, what exactly is limestone? You know the song, like a limestone cow. Wait, nope, like a rhinestone cowboy. Never mind. No, but seriously, what is limestone? Limestone is some cool rock. It comes from marine environments. So seawater has a little bit of calcium carbonate in it, and marine organisms will use that, such as clams, oysters, mussels, and coral. Will use that calcium carbonate in the water to create their shells and bones. Pretty interesting. And so when they die, that stuff settles at the bottom of the seawater, and the water creates a lot of pressure, and it just starts accumulating at the bottom. And once the water goes away, you have a thick layer of calcium carbonate that's settled, and it hardens the rock, and there you go, sedimentary rock that is made of calcium carbonate. Something that's interesting is you can test rock to see if it's limestone by putting some hydrochloric acid on it or vinegar, and it will start to bubble if it's limestone because some carbon dioxide gas is formed. So yeah, that'd be cool to go out sometime with some hydrochloric acid or vinegar and do the test and be like, oh yeah, bubbled, there it is, limestone, baby. One of the things I love about geologists is that they're Earth's detectives, right? The amazing things they've been able to figure out, and a lot of the stuff is not intuitive, is it? Trying to understand what happened on Earth and underground hundreds of millions of years ago. Like, I wouldn't be out in the middle of the Colorado Plateau, some big desert area where I don't see water at all, and see a rock cliff and think, I bet that was made from ancient marine life. Now under that, we're going to the Wahweap Formation. This is about 80 million years ago when this was laid down. And there's some really cool looking rock in there. It's mostly sandstone and siltstone. And many invertebrate fossils have been found, including dinosaurs. A lot of dinosaurs in the Wahweap. Below that, we have the Straight Cliffs Formation. This was the late Cretaceous. This was about 85, 90 million years ago when this was laid down. This is a marginal marine basin system. So it's mostly sandstone with some mudstone and siltstone, and many fossils from sea creatures, so amphibians have been found here, and dinosaurs. Below that, we've got the Tropic Shale. This was laid down around 92 to 95 million years ago. Shale is mudstone and some clay. And many invertebrate fossils were found in this layer, including dinosaurs. Below that, we've got Dakota Formation. This was laid down about 100 million years ago. This is when the western interior seabed really opened up. And in this layer, we have sandstone, mudstones, clay, shale, dinosaur footprints. Imagine a big dinosaur stepping in the mud. And then it starts to harden. And then if you have some layer of sediment above that hardened footprint, it can protect that layer for millions of years. And then if that layer above the footprint gets eroded away, and boom, now you got a dinosaur footprint, and somebody's walking along and be like, whoa, check that out, a footprint from 100 million years ago, that's crazy. All right, what was the Western Interior Seaway? Well, it was an interesting body of water, big sea that extended from the Arctic Ocean down through North America into the Gulf of Mexico. Split North America into two sides, the western side and the eastern side. And it was a fairly shallow sea, but there's a lot of marine life in there. So below that layer, we've got the Entrada Sandstone. This was about 140 to 180 million years ago. Mostly mudstone, siltstone, and sandstone deposited in a shallow Sundance Sea. Famous places with a lot of Entrada Sandstone are Arches National Park and Capitol Reef National Park. So what was the Sundance Sea? It was a body of water that made the sun dance? I'd like to think so, but not quite. Basically, as sea levels rose and fell, some water from the Arctic Ocean would come south. So around 150, 200 million years ago, in the Jurassic period, the Sundance Sea was a branch of the Arctic Ocean that came south, Western U.S., Western Canada, all the way down toward the Colorado Plateau. Below that level, we have the Carmel Formation. This was laid down about 170 million years ago. This was mostly limestone and mudstone with some sandstone, siltstone. There were some marine organisms here, these bryozoans, oysters, dinosaur footprints have been found in there. This layer was laid down because it was the edge of the Sundance Sea. All right, so Navajo sandstone, yeah, this is beautiful rock in Zion National Park is where it's most famous. These are huge sand dunes that harden. They're white to light pink colored, and the differences in colors are due to the differences in groundwater. So these dunes were underground. They were buried. Next below the Navajo sandstone is the Kayenta Formation. This was laid down around 200 million years ago. And this is a thinner, dark, broken layer with ledges, sandstone, shale, and limestone. Then below the Kayenta, we have the Mojave. This was a little over 200 million years ago. This is siltstone and sandstone. It was formed on Chinle Formation. And there's an unconformity of about 10 million years. An unconformity is when there's some missing rock. Like at some point, there was a sedimentary rock that is no longer there, not really sure why it's gone. Now, then you have the Chinle below that. This was 200 some million years ago from sediment from rivers and streams, lakes, wetlands, and windblown debris. And then finally at the very bottom, the Moenkopi. This was laid down around 240 million years ago. Sandstone, mudstone, and shale with some limestone. All right, I am looking at the Vermillion Cliffs. Awesome. Vermillion Cliffs National Monument here. One of the steps of the grand staircase, which is comprised of around 5 steps or so. And look at this beautiful sedimentation layer, this red rock. It is beautiful, and you can really see far out here. It's a great expansive view, classic Colorado Plateau, desert Southwest. Hey, why are the Vermillion Cliffs called vermilion? I didn't know this, but vermilion is actually a color. And so this vermilion is a pigment that came from something called cinnabar. Cinnabar is an ore. An ore is a rock that includes some sort of valuable mineral. It included mercury. So these guys way back when were like, oh, we could use that ore. It's got some mercury in it. And they're like, oh, the rock has this beautiful reddish stuff in it. Let's use the red too. So Roman painters used to use it to create some beautiful red paintings. In China, they would use it in pottery stuff. They liked having this ore, but after a while, like, whoa, this mercury stuff's actually toxic. This is not good. We might want to not use this anymore. Why is it red? A lot of the rocks in southern Utah, northern Arizona are reddish. It's why it's called red rock country. And the way that it gets red like that is because there's some iron that was in there. When iron is exposed to oxygen and water, it turns into iron oxide. In other words, it rusts. Just like if you put a nail outside into oxygen, it starts to rust. Also Mars, same thing with Mars, that's why it's so red. So the most famous part of Vermillion Cliffs National Monument is a cool area called the Wave. No surfing or boogie boarding in this situation though. This is just a really cool area. It's a really neat rock formations that looks all wavy and stuff. You've probably seen the pictures of it. It's become so popular that you actually have to win a lottery to be able to hike out there. So how come you don't see the sedimentation layers in many other places? The Colorado Plateau is special in that there was a lot of uplift brought these layers up above the surface, and there wasn't much mountain development. A lot of times if you have uplift from forces underground, plates colliding, and other things that have forced ground upwards, there are mountains that develop, and it sort of warps the layers and stuff. But here at the plateau is basically lifted straight up, and so you can see these nice layers, like this layer cake. Wow, check this place out. This is a place called Cliff Dwellers. It's not too far from Page, Arizona, in the Vermillion Cliffs National Monument. Look at these rocks. These things seem like they're out of this world or something. Some really cool boulders that have come down. Looks like there's been quite a bit of erosion and have made these super interesting. These things look like something from an alien world or something. All right, I found my dream home. Just put down a down payment on this thing. Pretty good real estate around here. It's really cool. These people built these houses in these rocks. This feels like I'm out at Burning Man or something, out here in the desert in these awesome, beautiful, huge formations, pieces of art that instead of made by humans, this feels like it was made by something else. It just gives you that extra sense that this thing is special. There's something about this whole area, and it was a cool surprise. I had no idea that this place existed. Just driving by, I'm like, whoa, holy cow. So yeah, definitely check out Cliff Dwellers if you get a chance, if you're ever near Page, Arizona. All right, that's my show on the Colorado Plateau. What a fascinating, awesome area of the U.S. that is. So many amazing places. You could spend months to years of your life really enjoying the plateau. I need to go back and do it legitimately. I was just there for a couple of days, and that's not enough. To really enjoy it, you got to get out there on foot. You got to camp. You got to backpack. And you really got to pay attention and learn about the cool geology. It's fascinating. It's really incredible. Special area of the world where you can really see all these sedimentation layers and appreciate the formation of earth around there. Totally cool. Yeah, go out there, spend some quality time, and hopefully you enjoyed the show and you're inspired to go out there and visit the Colorado Plateau.